All right, so today we're diving into a mystery, a really haunting one that's been around for, almost 80 years now. It's a story that starts all warm and cozy, a Christmas fire, and then it just turns into this incredibly cold, unanswered question.
And really, the whole thing comes down to this one central, absolutely chilling question. I mean, it just sounds impossible, right? But this is the exact mystery that has hung over the Sodder family ever since 1945.
5. That's the number at the very heart of this. 5 kids. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. One minute, they're just sleeping in their beds on Christmas Eve. The next, they're just gone.
So let's get into it. To really get what's going on here, you have to picture it. We're going back to Fayetteville, West Virginia. We're talking about the Sodder family. You've got George, who is a pretty outspoken Italian immigrant, his wife Jenny, and a huge bustling house with 10 kids running around.
And you can just imagine the scene, right? It's Christmas Eve. The older kids got to stay up late, they're playing with their new toys. The whole house just has that special kind of happy chaos that you only get on a holiday.
But then, in the middle of the night, everything changes. Jenny wakes up smelling smoke. The house is on fire. It's absolute chaos. George, Jenny, and 4 of the kids, they manage to get out into the freezing cold. But then comes that horrifying realization, that gut-wrenching moment. 5 of their children are still inside, trapped in the attic bedrooms. Okay, and this right here, this is the point where a terrible tragedy starts to feel like something else. Something much, much more sinister. Because that fire, it was just the beginning of a night that was packed with really bizarre and, frankly, super suspicious events. I mean, just look at how this stuff stacks up. About a half hour before the fire starts, the phone rings. Jenny answers, and it's this woman laughing, asking for someone they've never heard of. Weird, right? Then, a few moments later, there's a loud thump on the roof. Then the fire starts, and the fire department, for reasons that are still not clear, they don't show up for 7 hours. By the time they get there, the house is, well, it's gone. Just a pile of ash.
It's like every single thing that could have helped them, that could have saved those kids, suddenly failed. George runs to the phone to call for help. The line is dead. And not just dead, it looks like it was cleanly cut. So he runs to get his big ladder, the one he always keeps in the same spot so he can climb up to the attic. It's missing. Gone. They found it later, just thrown into an embankment. And get this, he tries to start his 2 work trucks. They were working perfectly just the day before to pull them up to the window as a makeshift ladder, and neither one will start. It's just too much to be a coincidence.
So after all this, the official story was pretty straightforward. The kids tragically died in the fire. But for George and Jenny, no, they just couldn't accept that. Way too many things were wrong. It just didn't add up.
And this is really where you see the 2 stories just crash into each other. You had the official version. It was faulty wiring. The fire got so hot the children's bodies were completely cremated. End of story. Case closed. But then you had the family's reality. George knew for a fact that the wiring was fine. He just had it redone and inspected. And this is the big one, after they searched through every single inch of those ashes, they found nothing. I mean, nothing. No bones, no teeth, not a single trace of 5 children.
And look, this wasn't just grieving parents in denial. Their skepticism was actually backed up by, forensic science. They talked to experts who all said the same thing. A house fire, even a bad one, just doesn't burn hot enough or long enough to completely destroy human bones. You would expect to find something. At the very least, you'd find teeth, pieces of the skull. So all of this led the Sodders to a terrifying conclusion. The fire wasn't an accident. It was a diversion. It was arson. And they actually started finding evidence to back this up. A bus driver who was passing through town came forward and said he saw people throwing what he called balls of fire at the house. And remember that loud thump on the roof that Jenny heard? Well, months later, after the snow melted, they found this weird hard rubber thing in the yard. Some people said it looked like a kind of pineapple bomb, an incendiary device.
So, if the kids didn't die in the fire, then the next question is obvious. Where did they go? Who would take them? And why? This is where the whole story starts to get into some really murky territory, stuff involving grudges, threats, and even the mafia.
Okay, so 2 main theories really started to take shape. The first one points to an insurance agent. Apparently, George had turned him down, and the guy threatened him, saying his house would go up in smoke and that he'd pay for his dirty remarks about Mussolini.
Which brings us to the second theory, which is all about that political stuff. See, George Sodder was really, really anti-Mussolini, and he wasn't quiet about it. For an Italian immigrant back then, that was a pretty dangerous stance to take. So one idea is that the local Italian mafia kidnapped the kids as a kind of payback.
And what really kept these kidnapping theories alive were the sightings. In the weeks and months after the fire, these little reports started to trickle in. A woman at a tourist stop was sure she saw the kids in a car the morning after the fire. Then a waitress, like 50 miles away, said she served breakfast to the children, who were with a man and a woman who looked to be of Italian descent.
You can imagine this search just completely took over their lives. It became this lifelong, all-consuming mission. The Sodders were just not going to accept that their children were dead. They poured every ounce of their energy and all of their money into trying to find them.
They even put up this huge billboard, which is now pretty famous, right on Route 16. It had pictures of the 5 missing kids and a big reward offer. That thing became a local landmark, a constant, heartbreaking reminder of a family that refused to give up hope. It stayed up for over 40 years, right up until Jenny Sodder passed away in 1999.
Then, out of the blue, in 1967, we're talking more than 20 years after the fire, a letter shows up. It's postmarked from Kentucky, and it's just addressed to Jenny. She opens it, and inside, there's a photograph. It's a photo of a young man who looks, well, he looks an awful lot like their missing son, Lou.
And on the back of the photo, someone had written this strange cryptic message. It just said, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie." I mean, can you imagine? Was this it? Was this the proof they'd been praying for? The family looked at that picture and they were absolutely certain. That was him.
So, of course, they immediately hired a private investigator. They sent him to Kentucky to track down this lead. But in what has to be one of the most frustrating twists in this whole story, the detective went to investigate and he just disappeared, vanished. They never heard from him again. So even with that incredible clue, the Sodders never got the answers they so desperately needed. George passed away in 1969, and he went to his grave believing his children were still alive out there somewhere. And Jenny, she wore black every single day for the rest of her life. She passed away in 1989, never, ever knowing what happened to her 5 children.
And that just brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? What in the world happened on Christmas Eve, 1945? Was it just a horrible, tragic accident with the most unbelievable string of bad luck imaginable? Or was it something else? A carefully planned kidnapping? A cold-blooded act of revenge? And maybe one of the most chilling and elaborate unsolved crimes in American history? That's the question we're still asking today.